Chapter 1. The Scent of a Forgotten Word. What happens when a language loses its soul? Have you ever tried to remember a word, a perfect, specific word for a feeling you had as a child? A word for the color of the sky just before a summer storm, or the particular ache of a house after everyone has gone to bed? You can feel the shape of it on the tip of your tongue, the ghost of its meaning in your mind. But the word itself is gone, and in its place, only a hollow space remains. What if I told you that this small personal loss is a tiny echo of a much larger vanishing, a silent, creeping emptiness that George Orwell feared more than any torture chamber, because he knew that to lose a word is to lose the world it describes. To lose the language of truth is to lose the very ability to think it. And what happens to a soul, to a society, that can no longer even name its own prison? Imagine for a moment the scent of old paper. Not the sharp, acidic smell of a newspaper, but the deep, sweet, almost vanilla scent of a book that has lived on a shelf for 100 years. It's the scent of time itself, patient and quiet. Now imagine that scent beginning to fade, not all at once, but slowly, day by day, as if the very AIR is being thinned out. The words on the page remain, the ink is still black, but the meaning behind them, the weight, the history, the subtle shimmering connections they once held to real things, begins to evaporate. This is where Orwell's deepest fear lived, not in the boot stomping on a human face, but in the moment before the boot falls, in the terrible, quiet suffocation of language. He saw it not as a theory in a dusty lecture hall, but as a cold, practical tool, a tool for unmaking the world. In the world of 1984, the party isn't just banning words, it is surgically removing the very concepts they represent. Freedom becomes a meaningless noise. Justice is a fossil, a curious relic no one can quite explain. Even the word democracy has been so hollowed out, so twisted into its opposite, that to say it is to say nothing at all. They create a new language, newspeak, with a single terrifying purpose: to make thought crime literally impossible, because there will be no words with which to think the thought. It is the ultimate act of control, not over bodies, but over the architecture of the mind itself. To shrink the dictionary is to shrink the universe of possible ideas, to make the world small and bare and safe for those in power. But this is not just a horror for the future. It is a quiet whisper in our own ear tonight. We feel it when a complex, painful, beautiful human experience is reduced to a clinical acronym. When a towering emotion like grief or rage is flattened into a single, overused word: stress. When the endless spectrum of political belief is crushed into two opposing slogans shouted across a void where conversation used to live. We feel the thinning of the air. We feel the words losing their power, their precision, their soul. We start to struggle, grasping for that forgotten word, for a feeling we know is real, but can no longer describe. And in that struggle, a part of our reality winks out of existence. Because if you cannot name it, does it truly exist for anyone else? Even for you? Orwell begged us to be the keepers of the old scented paper, to be the librarians of the precise and the beautiful and the true. To fight for the specific word against the lazy general one, to cherish the complex sentence that captures a complex truth rather than the simple slogan that hides it. This is not an academic exercise. It is a sacred duty to reality. Every time you choose a word that is more accurate, more kind, more vivid, you are lighting a candle in that thinning air. You are pushing back against the emptiness. You are preserving a world where the sky before a storm has a name, and the quiet of an empty house is a feeling that can be shared. You are keeping the universe large and mysterious and whole. And as you drift toward sleep, think of the words you love, the ones that feel like home, and guard them. For in guarding them, you guard a part of us all. And in that guarded silence, a question forms. If we can be made to lose the words for our own captivity, what else might we willingly give up for the simple, terrible comfort of feeling safe? Chapter 2. The complicity of the warm bed. The terrible comfort of looking away. There is a certain kind of cold that doesn't just chill the skin, it seeps into the bone, into the very will. A damp English cold that makes the world outside your window seem gray and sharp and hostile, and inside there is a bed, a warm bed. The blankets are heavy and soft. The pillow is cool on one side, perfectly warm on the other, and from this sanctuary you can hear the wind. You can hear the distant sounds of struggle, of arguments, of things being broken. But here, in this nest you have made, you are safe. The warmth is a promise, a bargain. Stay here. Be quiet. Look no further than the edge of your own mattress, and everything will be all right. This is the most seductive prison Orwell ever described, the prison of comfort, the complicity of the warm bed. Because the greatest trick tyranny ever plays is convincing us that our silence is peace, and our inaction is innocence. We like to imagine resistance as a grand dramatic thing, a shouting in the square, a throwing of a stone, a defiant stand against the tanks. And it can be that. But for Orwell, the more insidious battle was not against the obvious monster. It was against the cozy allure of the ordinary. It was the struggle to throw off the blankets on a cold morning when there is no obvious reason to do so. In 1984, Winston Smith's first, most dangerous act of rebellion is not a plot to overthrow the party. It is to write in a diary. It is to try to remember, to think for himself, in the privacy of his own mind, in the corner of his flat that is hidden from the telescene. His crime is wanting a private life, an inner world that is not owned by the state. But the state knows that private life is the birthplace of public courage. So it must be invaded, eliminated. It must be made more comfortable to just stop, to accept the warmed milk of approved reality. Orwell saw this in the intellectuals of his day, the ones who would twist themselves into logical knots to justify the unjustifiable, so long as it aligned with their ideology. They chose the warm bed of dogma over the cold, complicated truth of the world. He saw it in every person who looks away from a difficult truth because it threatens their comfort, their status, their simple view of how things are. The warmth of the bed is not just physical comfort. It is the comfort of belonging, of not rocking the boat, of being a good citizen who doesn't ask uncomfortable questions. It is the pressure to smile when you want to scream, to nod when you want to shake your head, to scroll past the troubling news because it would ruin your dinner. It is the slow, quiet agreement to trade a piece of your soul for a few more moments of peace. But Orwell, who fought in the trenches and lived in the squalor of poverty, knew a secret, that true peace never comes from this bargain. The warmth of that bed is a lie. It is a fever. Because the cold outside, the cold of truth, of responsibility, of moral clarity, is actually bracing. It is awakening. To feel it is to feel alive. To step into it, to choose to see the world clearly in all its harshness and all its beauty, is the beginning of freedom. The warm bed of complacency is where hope goes to die, of a slow, comfortable suffocation. The real comfort, the enduring peace, comes from knowing that your eyes are open, that you are not complicit in the nightmare, even if all you can do is whisper your truth into the darkness. As you lie in your own warm bed tonight, remember the power of that simple act, the act of seeing, of refusing to look away. It is a quiet rebellion, and it is everything. And from that act of quiet seeing, even in the deepest dark, a stubborn question takes root. If a single, private truth can feel like such a victory, what does that say about the nature of hope itself? Chapter 3. The Unkillable Seed. Why hope is the most dangerous thought of all. In the very heart of the ministry of love, a place designed to tear minds apart and stitch them back together into obedient empty shells, there is a man being broken. They have taken everything from him. They have shown him the worst thing in the world. They have invaded the last sacred chamber of his heart, and they have won. He finally loves Big Brother. The world of 1984 ends not with a bang, but with a whimper of total defeat. And yet, why does this story, this bleakest of all nightmares, not leave us feeling utterly devoid of light? Why does it feel strangely like a warning carved in love, and not just a prophecy of despair? Because Orwell, the ultimate realist, was also a secret gardener of hope, but not the kind of hope that is loud, bright, and naive. His was a hope that is smaller, tougher, and more dangerous than any weapon. A hope that is like a seed buried in frozen ground. It does not shout about the spring to come. It simply, stubbornly refuses to die. Orwell's entire life was a testament to this ugly, beautiful, indestructible hope. He went into the depths of poverty, not as a tourist, but as a participant, to report back the truth. He took a bullet in the throat fighting fascism in Spain for a cause already being betrayed by its supposed allies. He wrote his two greatest masterpieces while dying of tuberculosis, a man literally coughing up his lungs to tell the world what he saw coming. This is not the act of a man who believed nothing mattered. This is the act of a man who believed everything mattered, so fiercely that he was willing to spend his life and his breath in its defense. He wrote The Nightmare of 1984 not because he wanted it to happen, but because he wanted us to see the path we were on and to choose another. The very act of writing it was an act of hope, the hope that we would listen. He believed in the unkillable seed of individual decency. The proles in 1984, with their messy, unfiltered lives, their loves, their songs, their quarrels, represent this. The party cannot truly control them because it does not truly see them as a threat. It sees them as animals. But in their animal humanity, in their ability to care for a child, to sing a song for no reason, to get angry over a broken pot, lies the unorganized, unideological, irrepressible force of life itself. This is where hope hides, not in grand political schemes, but in the simple biological will to live, to love, to be free. It is the old man in the pub telling the same story he's told for 40 years. It is the woman hanging her laundry on a line, creating a simple order of her own. It is the act of keeping a memory alive, even if only for yourself. This is the hope we can take into the night, not a blinding light, but a single small candle that you cup your hand around. It is the hope that resides in your own private, unassailable mind. The hope that is present every time you choose kindness over cruelty, clarity over confusion, truth over comfort. Orwell's philosophy is not a philosophy of doom. It is a philosophy of fierce, clear-eyed, and ultimately loving vigilance. He hands us the candle and shows us the dark. He trusts us to carry it. And as you fall asleep, remember, the most dangerous thought of all is not the critical one or the angry one. It is the hopeful one. Because hope is the one thing a machine of oppression can never finally conquer. It is the human spirit, waiting in the dark, patient and unkillable as a seed. And it is breathing, right now, with you. Chapter 4. The Unwritten Letter. Why the purest acts of defiance leave no trace. Have you ever had a thought so private, so fiercely your own, that to speak it would be to break it? A conviction that felt too fragile for the harsh air of the world, so you kept it tucked away, like a smooth stone in your pocket, its meaning known only to you. What if I told you that in the shadow of vast crushing power, the most potent form of rebellion is not the raised fist or the shouted slogan, but the thought you never share, the letter you write in your mind, line by line, only to burn it before a single soul can see. This is the quiet, desperate hope that George Orwell gifted us, a philosophy not of public victory, but of private, unassailable truth. And to understand it is to find a fortress within yourself that no regime can ever breach. Imagine for a moment the weight of a pen in your hand, not the light tap of a keyboard, but the real, physical drag of ink onto coarse, rationed paper. In the world of 1984, this simple act is more dangerous than any weapon. To write is to make thought permanent, to create evidence. And in a society where reality is whatever the party says it is, your private reality is the ultimate heresy. So why would anyone risk it? Why carve a truth that could be your death sentence? The answer lies not in the document itself, but in the act of its creation. Winston Smith's diary. It wasn't written for publication. It wasn't written for an audience of fellow rebels. It was a message in a bottle, thrown into the sea of time, with no guarantee it would ever be found. He wrote for the simple, terrifying reason that he had to believe his own mind was real. The act of writing was the act of anchoring himself to a world that existed before and outside the party's lies. It was a declaration. I am here. My thoughts are mine, even if I am the only one who ever knows it. This is the essence of the unwritten letter. It is the internal act of preservation. Think of the moments in your own life where you have done this, holding your tongue when a lie was expected, smiling politely while inside you were screaming the truth. These are not moments of cowardice. They are moments of profound, personal sovereignty. You were keeping a flame alive in a cupped hand, protecting it from a wind that sought to extinguish it. Orwell teaches us that when the public square is polluted with propaganda, the last free territory is the human skull. And defending that territory is the primary duty of a free person. It is a lonely duty. There are no parades for the man who privately disagrees, no medals for the woman who remembers a song correctly, when everyone around her is chanting the wrong words. Their victory is silent, invisible, and yet it is everything. Because a system built on lies requires your external compliance, yes, but it hungers for your internal submission. It wants you to not only say that 2 + 2 = 5, but to believe it, to make its truth your truth. The unwritten letter is your refusal to do that. It is you, in the quiet of your own mind, whispering, 4, always 4. And this is where the story becomes a gentle, breathing thing in this dim light. It moves from the political to the deeply, achingly personal. Because this isn't just about resisting a totalitarian state. It's about the quiet heroism of your own inner life. The thoughts you have in the shower, the arguments you win in the car, the memories you turn over like precious stones when you're trying to fall asleep. These are your unwritten letters, your private declarations of independence from the pressures of your day, from the expectations of your family, from the curated perfection of the world online. Orwell's genius was to take this universal, intimate experience and show us its staggering political weight. He gave a name to our quietest rebellions and revealed them to be the bedrock of all freedom. To lose that inner space, to allow it to be cluttered with the noise and demands of others, is the first and final defeat. But to tend to it, to know that within you is a room no one can enter without your permission, that is the beginning of hope. A hope that doesn't need to be loud to be unbreakable. So, as you drift towards sleep tonight, think not of the battles fought with shouts, but of the wars won in silence. Think of the unwritten letter inside you, the truth you hold that no one else knows. That is your core. That is your humanity, untouched and pure. And in a world that often feels like it's spinning towards madness, that private, unwavering truth is the most radical thing you own. Protect it. Write it again and again on the walls of your own heart. And know that in simply holding it, you are participating in the oldest, quietest form of defiance there is. A defiance that leaves no trace and is therefore utterly indestructible. The night deepens outside your window, and the silence between stories is its own kind of truth. It hangs in the air, a promise of more to come. And in that silence, a question forms, not from me, but from the shadows themselves. If the purest truth is the one we never share, what happens when the very past we cling to isn't real? What happens when the lullabies sung to us, the stories that shaped us, were never ours to begin with? This is a colder thought, one that asks us to question the ground beneath our memories. Chapter 5. The Ministry of Lullabies. The Gentle Violence of a Stolen Past. Who are you without your story? Without the tales told at your grandparents' knee, the faded photographs in a dusty album, the silly family jokes that would mean nothing to anyone else, but everything to you? Your past is the melody your present hums. It's the quiet lullaby that sings you to sleep, assuring you of your place in the world, of where you came from, of who you are. Now, imagine that melody being subtly rewritten, note by note, word by word, not with a scream, but with a whisper. The photograph is altered, the date on the document is changed. The meaning of the old joke is shifted just so until it signifies something else entirely. This is the most insidious violence a power can commit. It doesn't just imprison your body, it annihilates your context. It strands you in an eternal, fabricated present. And Orwell, in his terrifying clarity, saw that to control the future, one must first control the past. For the past is the foundation upon which we build our understanding of everything. To own it is to own the very soul of a people. This is the purpose of the ministry of truth. It is not a ministry of record-keeping, but of story-killing. Its workers aren't clerks, they are narrative assassins. They perform what Orwell called the nightly massacre of history. They don't just tell new lies, they systematically untell the old truths. They make things unhappen. And the true horror is the gentle, bureaucratic efficiency of it. There is no grand bonfire of books, no dramatic speech. There is only the soft whir of a memory hole devouring a scrap of paper, the quiet satisfaction of a correction neatly made. The violence is administrative, clean. It happens in the sterile light of an office, far from the messy, emotional world of human memory. This is the ministry of lullabies. It sings the world to sleep with a new, approved song, and in doing so, it murders the OL'd one. It doesn't feel like violence. It feels like an update, a correction, a progress, and that is why it is so dangerously effective. Because what is a person without a past? They are a leaf severed from the tree, blowing in whatever wind is strongest. They are adrift. Without a shared history to ground them, people cannot form a shared identity. They cannot point to a past injustice and say, "Never again," because the injustice has been erased from the record. They cannot draw strength from a past victory, because the victory now belongs to the party. The past becomes a blank slate, upon which those in power can write whatever script is most useful for maintaining their control in the present. If the enemy of today was the ally of yesterday, it doesn't matter. The records have been adjusted. The lullaby has been rewritten. The people will hum the new tune, because the old one is gone. And to remember a different melody is a thought crime. It is to be hopelessly, dangerously alone. But here, in the quiet of this room, let's turn this vast, chilling concept inward. Let's make it personal. For you are not a citizen of Oceania. Your past is not being systematically erased by a ministry of truth. Or is it? In smaller, softer ways, do we not sometimes allow our own past to be rewritten by the gentle pressure of social media, curating our memories into a flawless highlight reel? By the stories we tell ourselves to avoid a painful truth? It wasn't that bad. I never really loved them anyway. That's not how it happened. We become the mini-ministry of truth for our own lives, airbrushing the awkward moments, deleting the embarrassing failures, editing our personal history until it tells a smoother, more acceptable story. We do it to be loved, to fit in, to survive. Orwell's warning is for the state, but its echo is found in the human heart. The urge to simplify, to sanitize, to control the narrative is a deeply human one, and it is a dangerous one. For when we edit our own past, we fracture our own selves. We lose the lessons carved into us by failure. We forget the texture and the truth of our own journey. We become a propaganda poster of ourselves, flat, perfect, and utterly false. So as you lie here in the dark, consider your own lullabies, the stories you tell about yourself, where you came from, what shaped you. Are they true, or have they been softened by time and wishful thinking? Protecting your past, in its messy, complicated, and sometimes painful entirety, is an act of self-preservation. It is your defense against the internal ministry of truth that seeks to make your life a more palatable fiction. Hold on to the real memories, the awkward ones, the painful ones, the joyous ones that don't photograph well. They are the proof that you have lived a real life, not an approved one. Your unedited past is the one thing no external power can ever truly touch if you refuse to relinquish it. It is the original, unaltered lullaby. Hum it to yourself tonight. Remember it in all its discordant, beautiful truth. For in that remembering, you perform the most sacred of rites. You keep a soul, your own, from disappearing into the story someone else wrote for it. The hour grows later still, and the candle flame wavers, casting long, dancing shadows that look like grasping hands and turning gears. The machine of power is vast, but it is not alive, and somewhere, deep within its cold, ticking heart, there is a pulse that does not match its rhythm, a flicker of something wild, something untamed, something that refuses to be told what time it is. Chapter 6. The animal in the clock, finding a heartbeat in the machine of power. Every machine has its purpose. A clock is made to measure time. A press is made to print newspapers. A state, built like a machine, is made to enforce order, to predict behavior, to eliminate the unpredictable. It seeks to turn human beings, with their messy, chaotic, and beautiful passions, into reliable cogs. They must turn at the right speed, in the right direction, at the right time. Their heartbeat must sync to the rhythm of the system. But life is not a cog. Life is the grit in the machine, the hairline fracture in the perfect gear, the moth that flutters into the Jing-Mi clockwork and brings everything to a grinding, glorious halt. Orwell, for all his bleakness, was a profound believer in that moth. He believed in the animal inside the human that could never be fully tamed, never be fully predicted, never be fully mechanized. He called it the secret emotion, the primitive animalistic spirit that rebels not out of political ideology, but out of a pure biological urge for freedom. This is the last and greatest hope. It is not a philosophy. It is a heartbeat. We see it everywhere in his work, this animal spirit. It's in the sweat on a working man's brow, the raw physicality that the party intellectuals despise and fear. It's in the simple, sensual pleasure of a good cup of tea, or the taste of real chocolate, or the smell of fresh coffee. Things Winston and Julia pursue not as political acts, but as acts of reconnecting with their own animal bodies, their own capacity for joy. It is the prole woman singing below Winston's window, her voice rich and fertile and utterly free because she is beneath the party's notice. She is not part of the machine. She is life, blooming in the cracks of the pavement. But the most powerful symbol is the animal itself, the rats that Winston fears above all else. They are the ultimate symbol of the untamable, the filthy, the vital, the thing that survives in the ruins humanity creates. His fear of them is the party's fear of the animal within. They know that to finally break a human being, they must appeal to what is most base, most visceral, most animal in him. But in doing so, they admit its power. They admit that the core of a person is not an idea, but an instinct. And that instinct, for survival, for love, for freedom, is the one thing the machine can never truly schedule or approve. This is the great quiet comfort Orwell offers us. Systems of control are built on logic, on rules, on the predictable patterns of the human mind. But they are perpetually at war with the human body, with its aches and its hungers and its irrational loves. You cannot reason with a scent that suddenly transports someone to a childhood memory. You cannot outlaw the feeling of sun on skin. You cannot delete the impulse that makes a person risk everything to touch another person's hand. This is the animal in the clock, the stubborn biological truth of us that ticks to a rhythm older than any government, any ideology, any lie. It is the part of you that feels joy without permission, that feels grief without explanation, that loves without reason. The party in 1984 can make you betray your lover. It can make you confess to crimes you didn't commit. It can make you believe that 2 + 2 = 5. But can it make you enjoy a terrible piece of music? Can it force you to truly feel the love for a figurehead you've never met? It can demand the performance, but it cannot command the emotion. The animal within remains the final frontier, the last piece of uncontested territory. So tonight, as you feel the weight of your own body on the mattress, the slow, steady rhythm of your own breath, the faint pulse at your wrist, remember the animal. In a world that often feels like a machine, of deadlines, of algorithms, of expectations, of endless scrolling and productivity hacks and optimized living, you contain within you a thing that is wild, a thing that is not efficient, a thing that is not logical, a thing that simply is. Your capacity for a sudden unbidden moment of awe at the moon outside your window. The tear that comes for a reason you can't articulate. The deep, soul-level comfort of a familiar blanket. These are not small things. They are the whispers of your own inner animal, scratching at the door of the clock, reminding you that you are alive, not just functioning. Orwell's world is a warning of what happens when we try to kill that animal, but his work is also a testament to its incredible enduring resilience. It is the unkillable seed, not in the mind, but in the blood and the bone. So let yourself feel the machine of the world, and then feel your own heartbeat within it, a different rhythm, a truer time, the animal in the clock. And let that primal, peaceful truth carry you away from all the manufactured noise into the deep, quiet, and utterly real wilderness of your own sleep. Chapter 7. The Candle That Casts the Shadow. On the necessary darkness of truth. Have you ever considered that the purest truth is not a brilliant, blinding sun, but a single, fragile candle? And that its most important function is not to illuminate everything in a cheerful, easy glow, but to cast the shadows, to show you the shape of the things that stand against the light, the true contours of the room you are in, and the things that wait in its corners. We spend our lives, so often, begging for more light, more clarity, more certainty, screaming into the void for a simple answer. But what if the answer was never in the light itself? What if it was always in the respectful, the necessary acknowledgement of the shadow it creates? What if, to truly see the world as it is, we must first make peace with the dark? This is the quiet heart of George Orwell's fear. Not the fear of a boot, not the fear of a screen, not the fear of a cage, but the fear of a world without shadows. A world flooded with a flat, sterile, and artificial light that comes from every direction at once. A light with no single source, and therefore, no single truth. A light that eliminates contrast, that washes out all definition, so that a raised fist and an open hand look exactly the same. This is the propaganda of the effortless day. The propaganda that claims there are no hard choices, only correct ones. No painful truths, only convenient facts. It is the world of the ministry, the world of the slogan, the world of the telescreen, a world that seeks to abolish the night, and in doing so, abolishes the stars. It is a world that promises safety from the dark, but only at the cost of never knowing the profound comfort of a single, private flame. Your flame. The one you cup your hands around, not to hide it from others, but to feel its fragile heat on your palms, to know in your bones that its existence is yours to tend. This is the first and perhaps the last rebellion, the rebellion of a solitary light. Think of Winston Smith in his flat, writing in a book. It is not a grand act. He is not drafting a manifesto. He is not plotting a revolution. He is simply writing. The act itself is almost childish. It is the act of a man creating a shadow. The diary is his candle. And what does he write? He writes of the things that the flat, official light of his world denies. He writes of frustration, of confusion, of a memory that doesn't fit the official story. He writes of desire. These are his shadows. They are not grand philosophical statements. They are the simple, awkward, human-shaped silhouettes that his own small light throws against the wall. And in that act, he rediscovered something terrifying and beautiful, that a thing is defined by what it is not. Truth is defined by the lie it rejects. Freedom is defined by the constraint it pushes against. Hope is defined by the despair it quietly holds at bay. To remove the opposition is to dissolve the thing itself. To flood the world with a light that has no source is to make everything nothing. So he writes, not to create a new sun, but to protect the precious flickering right to have a shadow, to be a person and not a placid, illuminated object. And this is where we so often misunderstand power. We think it wants to show us a different truth, but it doesn't. It doesn't want to show you any truth at all. It wants to make the very concept of truth obsolete. It wants to replace the difficult, personal relationship we have with reality, a relationship forged in the tension between light and dark, known and unknown, certain and mysterious, with a simple, seamless, and total reality of its own. A reality with no edges, because there is no light to cast them. A reality that is just is. In such a world, you cannot rebel because there is nothing to push against. You cannot dissent because there is no official version to dissent from. There is only the hum of the machine, the endless, dayless present. This is the most profound violence one can commit against the human soul, not to chain it in darkness, but to condemn it to an eternity of noon, a timeless, shadowless, and utterly lonely noon. So as you drift tonight, away from the screens and the headlines and the certainties they try to sell you, consider the value of your own shadows, the thoughts that don't fit, the memories that feel out of place, the quiet doubts, the private H's. Do not rush to illuminate them with someone else's easy answer. Do not try to flatten them into something acceptable. Honor them. They are the evidence of your own personal light. They are the proof that you are still a person in a world that increasingly asks you to be a perfectly lit, uncomplicated object. The fight is not to win an argument. The fight is to keep your candle, to let it cast its strange, dancing, defiant shadows on the wall. For in those shadows, you will find the most important map of all, the map of your own unsurrendered mind. A map that leads always, always, back to the humble, undeniable truth of your own experience. Guard it, for it is the one thing they can never truly take from you, only convince you to blow out yourself. Chapter 8. The Grammar of Silence. The unspoken language of the unbroken. What is the most powerful word never spoken? The most defiant sentence ever left unsaid? We are taught that language is about expression, about pouring ourselves out into the world, about making noise. But what of its opposite? What of the profound eloquence of what is deliberately withheld? The chosen pause, the edited thought, the smile that does not reach the eyes, the love that is felt but never declared. Because to declare it would be to hand it over to the machinery of a world that would only corrupt its meaning. There is a whole language that exists in the negative space of official dialogue, a grammar of silence. And to learn it is to learn the oldest form of encryption, to build a secret room inside yourself, a room whose walls are made not of brick, but of quiet, a room where the most precious things are kept safe, not by a lock, but by a mutual understanding of their value, an understanding so deep it needs no words at all. Orwell, the writer, the master of words, understood this paradox better than anyone. He knew that in a world drowning in noise, the noise of propaganda, of slogans, of endless, empty news, the most radical act could be a profound and knowing silence. In 1984, the ultimate victory of the party would be to make even the concept of a private thought impossible. But they never quite get there, do they? Because Winston and Julia discover a language that exists beneath, and in spite of, the words they are forced to use. Their rebellion begins not with a shouted oath, but with a look, a note passed in silence, a meeting arranged without a word. Their love is built on a foundation of things unsaid, because the things that mattered most were the very things that would be most dangerous to say. Their intimacy was a shared secret, a silent pact against the noisy world. The party could torture words out of them. It could force them to confess, to betray, to scream anything it wanted, but it could never touch the silent understanding that had existed, for a time, between them. That silence became their true country, a place they could both visit, even if they could never speak its name again. This is not about secrecy. This is about sovereignty, the sovereignty over your own inner world. The official language of power, Newspeak, was designed to make certain thoughts literally unthinkable by eliminating the words for them. But the grammar of silence works in the opposite way. It protects thoughts by refusing to give them over to the clumsy, contaminated vocabulary of the outside world. It is the look a parent gives a child in a crowded, dangerous room, a look that says everything without making a sound. It is the way two old friends can sit together and say nothing and yet have the deepest, most comforting conversation. It is the diary entry written in a code only the heart understands. This silence is not empty. It is full, dense with meaning, a sanctuary. Power can force you to speak. It can force you to renounce, to confess, to praise. But it cannot force you to mean it. The place where you keep your true meaning, that can be a place of perfect, unassailable quiet. Think of the proles in Orwell's world. The party largely ignores them, considers them unimportant, because they are not part of the political machine. And in their world, the old language survives. The songs, the gossip, the simple unregulated talk of everyday life. Their power is their perceived irrelevance. Their language is not a weapon, it is a current. It flows around the structures of power, unnoticed. It is the silence of the deep ocean, teeming with life that the surface storm cannot touch. Their hope lies not in a loud revolution, but in the quiet, persistent, unbroken hum of simply continuing to be, to live a life that is not about the party, not about the war, not about the ideology, but about the small, silent truths of a shared meal, a remembered tune, a hand held in the dark. This is the grammar of the human spirit. It has no official dictionary. It is learned by heart. And it is unkillable because it does not need to announce itself to exist. So tonight, as the world outside continues its endless shouting argument, give yourself permission to practice this quiet grammar. Do not feel you must have an opinion on everything. Do not feel you must translate every feeling into a post, every thought into a tweet. Let some things remain unworded. Let them exist in the pure, uncorrupted state of feeling. That private disappointment, let it be just a feeling, a weight in the chest, not a story you have to explain. That flicker of joy, let it be just a warmth, a quickening of the pulse, not a moment you must immediately capture and share. Build your room of quiet. Furnish it with the things too precious to be named. This is not withdrawal. This is preservation. It is how you keep your soul intact in a noisy age. It is how you speak the most important truth of all, without ever making a sound. Chapter 9. The Animal in the Clock, finding a heartbeat in the machine of power. Listen. Beneath the tick-tick-ticking of the official clock, can you hear it? A slower, softer rhythm. A pulse. It is the rhythm of a body, not a system. The rhythm of breath, not a schedule. The rhythm of an untamed thing that lives somehow inside the perfect, sterile machine of control. We think of power as an abstract force, a set of rules, an ideology, a structure of steel and concrete. But it always comes down to this: a negotiation between the machine and the animal, the clock and the heartbeat. The system demands predictability, order, uniformity. But the animal body, your body, is messy, unpredictable, hungry, tired, aching, and yearning. It remembers things the mind is ordered to forget. It feels things the mind is told to ignore. It is the very last, frontier that totalitarianism must conquer. And it is the one frontier that can never be fully conquered. Because the body, in its simple, stubborn animal truth, is the keeper of a reality that no slogan can ever overwrite. Orwell's genius was to ground his terrifying philosophy not in ideas, but in the physical, in the grime of London, in the smell of boiled cabbage and old rag mats, in the aching varicose ulcer on Winston's ankle, a constant throbbing reminder of his own decaying flesh, a flesh that doesn't care about Oceania or Eurasia or the principles of Ingsoc. It just hurts. Julia's rebellion is not ideological. It is sensual, animalistic. It is about the taste of real chocolate and the smell of real coffee. It is about the feel of her skin against Winston's, the animal comfort of touch, the primal rhythm of sex, an act that is, for a few moments, outside of time, outside of politics, outside of the party's control. Their meeting place is a room above a junk shop, a room crowded with the physical detritus of a past the party is trying to erase. A clock that doesn't work, a painting of a church, a bed with a soft, lumpy mattress. These things are not just set dressing, they are artifacts of a reality that is physical, tangible, and therefore real in a way the party's ever-shifting truth can never be. The animal self believes in what it can touch and taste and smell. The party can say the chocolate is delicious, but your tongue knows it is rancid oil. The party can say you are full of energy and zeal, but your limbs know they are heavy with exhaustion. The body is the original, the ultimate repository of truth. The torture Winston undergoes in the ministry of love is not, in the end, about changing his mind. It is about breaking his body's connection to reality. O'Brien's lesson is the final, horrifying one, that power is the ability to make a human being insist that 5 fingers are 4, even as their eyes, their animal eyes, see 5. It is to force the animal to deny its own senses, to force the heartbeat to align itself with the tick of the official clock. This is the final victory, not to kill the animal, but to make it a collaborator in its own captivity, to make it beat its own heart in time with the metronome of power. But even then, even after the broken man in the Chestnut Tree Cafe whispers that he loves Big Brother, does the animal fully die? Or does it just retreat to a place so deep and silent that not even torture can reach it? A place where the memory of a touch, a taste, a smell is kept like a fossil, waiting for a different world to be discovered again. Your body is not a traitor. It is your most loyal informant. It tells you when you are tired, and you should listen instead of pushing through with more caffeine. It tells you when you are hungry for real food, not the processed spectacle of it. It tells you when a place feels safe and when it feels wrong, with a tension in your shoulders, a tightening in your gut. These are not irrational feelings. They are ancient data. They are the animal reading the world on a frequency that words cannot access. In a world of abstracted digital lives and curated identities, your body is your anchor to the real. The grit under your fingernails from working in the garden, the ache in your muscles from a long walk, the deep, satisfying fatigue after a day of tangible work, the warmth of another person's hand. These are not small things. They are the things that root you in a truth that is older than any government, any ideology, any lie. They are the animal in the clock, insisting on its own rhythm. So as you lie there in the dark, let your attention drift away from the clockwork of the day and drop down gently into the animal self. Feel the weight of your body on the mattress, the slow tidal rhythm of your breath moving in and out without you having to command it, the faint pulse at your wrist or in your throat. This is you, the real you, not the you on a document or a profile or a membership roll, the living, breathing, feeling creature. The machine of the world will tick on, as it always has. It will make its demands, its schedules, its noises. But it cannot stop your heart from beating its own rhythm. It cannot stop your lungs from taking in the night air. This is your quietest, most biological rebellion. To simply inhabit your own animal being, to trust its truths, to feel, truly feel, the world against your skin, and in that feeling, to be free. Chapter 10. The Boot's Forgotten Nerve. What the tyrant feels when he kicks you. Have you ever wondered, not about the pain of the boot, but about the boot itself? What it feels to be the instrument of that final crushing weight? We spend our lives fearing the heel, sympathizing with the face under it. But what of the leather, the sole, the nail that holds it all together? What if I told you that the most terrifying truth of power is not what it does to the oppressed, but what it does to the oppressor? That the man in the polished jackboot is, in a way, more trapped than the one he grinds into the mud? That his soul is the first and most permanent casualty of the system he enforces? What happens to a human hand when it is sewn into a glove of absolute control? And what tiny, forgotten nerve might still twitch there in the dark, reminding him of what he was? Imagine the boot, not as a symbol, not as a blunt instrument of state power from a dusty book, but as real leather, worn and scuffed at the toe from 1,000 minor kicks. Smell the polish, a cloying chemical scent meant to cover the smell of sweat and dirt. Feel the weight of it on your own foot, if you can. It's heavier than you thought, isn't it? It's a clumsy thing. To wear it is to walk with a deliberate, unnatural thud. You can't sneak up on anyone in boots like these. Their purpose is announcement. Their purpose is to be heard coming. Their sound is a promise. And the man who wears them, he must listen to that sound more than anyone. Thud, thud, thud. It is the drumbeat to which he marches, until he can no longer hear the music of his own heart. This man, let's call him a functionary, a cog. He has a name, but it's not important. In the machinery of power, names are filed away and replaced with numbers and titles. He has a small, tidy flat, a photograph of a woman on a bedside table, but the frame is face down now. He doesn't know why he did that. It was just an impulse one evening. He comes home, and the first thing he does is remove the boots. He places them side by side near the door, precise, regimented. And then he looks at his feet. In his socks, they look small, pale, almost vulnerable. He wiggles his toes, and for a moment, just a sliver of a second, he remembers being a boy, running barefoot through wet grass. The memory is so physical, so sudden, he can almost feel the cold dew. And then, it's gone, snuffed out. He looks at the boots. They seem to stare back. They are more real than his feet. They are more him than he is. This is the first and greatest victory of propaganda. Not the big lie shouted through a telescreen, but the quiet, meticulous theft of a man's inner world. It doesn't need to convince him that 2 + 2 is 5. It merely needs to make the question irrelevant. It needs to make him irrelevant, until all that is left is the function he performs, the kick, the stamp, the march. Orwell saw this with a chilling clarity. He understood that a totalitarian state isn't just built on fear. It is built on the systematic annihilation of the inner self, starting with its own agents. They must be hollowed out. They must become their role so completely that any flicker of an individual thought, a memory of grass, the feeling of a photograph's glass under a thumb, becomes a kind of psychic treason, a flaw in the machinery. So when the boot comes down, it's not a man doing it. It is a system acting through a human-shaped instrument. But the body remembers what the mind is forced to forget. The body keeps score. There is a nerve, a tiny filament of sensation that runs from the soul to the heel, and with every kick, there is a tiny, silent feedback, a vibration of wrongness. It's not guilt. Guilt is a luxury, a complex emotion for individuals. This is simpler. A dissonance, a feeling that the action is out of sync with some deep biological rhythm of humanity. The tyrant, the functionary, the party member. They spend their lives drowning out this signal with ideology, with ritual, with hatred, with the sheer monotonous thudding of their own footsteps. But it's there, a forgotten nerve, twitching in the dark. And this is where a strange, quiet hope begins to flicker. Not for the victim in that moment is beyond hope, but for the soul inside the boot, because that tiny, persistent twitch is evidence of something unkillable. It is the ghost in the machine. It is the proof that no matter how perfect the system, how absolute the control, it is being operated by a living, feeling organism that was never designed for such a purpose. The system can force the hand, but it cannot silence the subtle, cellular rebellion of a body that remembers freedom. It cannot erase the feel of grass. The system is, in the end, a parasite on humanity. It can never fully become its host without destroying itself. The boot can stomp a human face, but it can never truly feel right doing it. And that innate wrongness, that quiet, persistent hum of humanity, that is the crack in the foundation of every empire built on fear. That is the secret weakness. The boot is always, eventually, betrayed by the foot inside it. So sleep now, with the thought that the most powerful are, in a way, the most imprisoned, and that within the stark, black and white world they seek to create, there remains a nerve they cannot locate and cannot sever, quietly feeling its way back toward the light. Chapter 11. The Paperweight's Secret. Hum. The one object power can't catalog. And now, from the weight of the boot to the weight of glass. Can an object dream? Can a thing of the world, simple and solid, hum with a secret life of its own? In a room where every thought is monitored, every word recorded, every feeling suspect. There remains a kingdom of objects that cannot be interrogated. A paperweight, sitting on a desk. A smooth stone in a pocket. A piece of coral, beautiful and useless. These are the silent rebels, the quiet counter-revolutionaries of the material world. They hold a memory the state cannot access. They hum a tune the ministry of truth cannot transcribe. What is the song of a thing that exists only for its own beauty? And what happens to a human soul when it learns to listen? Think of Winston Smith. In his bleak, gray world of rationed chocolate and synthetic gin, he finds it, a lump of glass, curved and heavy at the bottom. Inside it, a strange, beautiful piece of coral, frozen forever. It serves no purpose. It is not efficient. It produces nothing. It is, by the logic of the party, an absurdity, and that is precisely its power. He buys it. This is an act of treason, as pure as any diary entry. He is not buying a tool. He is not acquiring a resource. He is communing with a fragment of a world that has been declared not to exist. The past. The world of beauty for beauty's sake. The world of the useless, the sentimental, the personal. The coral has no reason to be, it simply is. And in its silent, stubborn existence, it refutes the entire world of Ingsoc. This is the secret hum. It is the vibration given off by anything that is authentic. A real handmade piece of furniture in a room of mass-produced junk. The taste of real coffee after a lifetime of synthetic substitutes. The scent of an old book, of paper and glue and time. These things are archives. They are storehouses of a truth that is not written down, because it cannot be. It is a truth that is felt in the fingertips, on the tongue, in the nose. It is a pre-language truth, a truth of substance. The party can rewrite every book, burn every photograph, invent every fact. But what can it do about the weight of a glass paperweight? It can smash it, yes, but it cannot change the fact of its weight. It cannot change the cool smoothness of its surface. It cannot unmake the beauty of the coral inside. It can only destroy it. And in that act, it admits its own inferiority. It admits that it cannot compete with the simple, profound truth of this silent, beautiful object. Power seeks to make the world flat, to make it functional, to strip it of its stories, its textures, its ambiguities, and its mysteries. A flat world is a controllable world. A world where a boot is just a boot, and never a reminder of a foot that once felt grass. But a paperweight is not flat, it is deep. It has an interior world. You look into it, and the world shifts, bends, is magnified. It is a lens. And this is the second act of quiet rebellion. It doesn't just exist authentically. It changes how you see everything else. When Winston looks at the coral, he is not just seeing a thing of beauty. He is seeing a different way of perceiving. He is practicing a form of seeing that is personal, intimate, and utterly beyond the reach of the thought police. They can see what he is looking at, but they cannot see what he sees. The image on his retina is his own. The feeling in his chest is his own. The paperweight creates a private chamber of thought, a tiny cathedral of self, where he is the only priest. So tonight, as you drift towards the edges of sleep, think of the paperweights in your own life, the objects you keep not for use, but for love. The seashell on the windowsill, the odd-shaped stone from a walk years ago, the trinket that makes no sense to anyone but you. These are your coral. These are your resistance. They hum with the frequency of your own history, your own unmonitored heart. They are proof that the world is not flat, that it is deep and textured and filled with silent, beautiful things that belong to no system, no party, no ideology. They belong only to the moment you found them, and the feeling they gave you, a feeling that was never recorded and can never be erased. Power can build 1,000 ministries, but it cannot manufacture a single moment of authentic wonder that is generated only by a soul encountering the world directly, without permission. So listen for the hum. It is the sound of a world that is still real, still deep, still waiting for you to look into it and see yourself reflected, whole and free. Chapter 12. The Heretic's Pulse, the unwritten law that governs your heartbeat. And so we come to the final truth, not in the boot nor in the glass, but in the body itself. In the quiet, dark prison of the self, there is a warden who never sleeps. The party called it the thought police. But what is it really? Is it an external force or something far more intimate? What if the most perfect prison is one where the prisoner becomes the guard, where the door is unlocked, but he dare not leave, because he has come to love his chains? And what is the one unwritten law, the one innate instruction that can overpower even this most insidious of captors? The law that is written not in any book, but in the very rhythm of your blood? The ultimate goal of power, of propaganda, is not to make you obey. Obedience is a crude, temporary victory. The ultimate goal is to make you complicit, to make you believe that your prison is, in fact, a fortress protecting you from a terrible world. It is to transfer the warden's keys into your own hand, to make you monitor your own thoughts, police your own desires, and report on your own soul. Winston's greatest terror is not Room 101. Room 101 is just the tool. His greatest terror is the realization that he will be the one to betray himself, that the boot will be offered to him, and that he will, in the end, want to stamp down. That the final victory of power is your own active, enthusiastic participation in your annihilation. They don't just break you, they make you break yourself and thank them for the privilege. But deep within the body, beneath the layers of conditioned fear and learned obedience, there is a rhythm, a pulse, a heartbeat. It is the most ancient text in the world, and it predates every ministry, every party, every lie ever told. It is an unwritten law. It has only one commandment: continue. It is not a loud law. It does not shout about revolution or freedom. It is quiet, patient, and utterly relentless. It does not argue with the mind. It simply persists. Thump, 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 thump. In the silence of a cell, it is the only sound. It is the sound of you continuing. This is the heresy. Not a shouted slogan, but a silent, biological insistence on existence. Orwell's genius was to locate hope not in ideology, not in some grand political solution, but in this most basic animal fact. The proles, he wrote, had remained human because they had stayed alive. It sounds too simple, almost foolish, but it is everything. To stay alive is not merely to breathe. It is to continue the pulse of human life, the messy, ungovernable, instinctual life of family, of love, of song, of anger, of desire. The party could control everything except this basic biological will to be. It could not stop the pulse. It could only threaten to stop it. And in that gap, between the threat and the pulse's next beat, lies all the freedom in the world. The heretic is not someone who believes the wrong thing. The heretic is someone whose pulse is out of sync with the official rhythm of the world. It is the man who, when told to hate, feels a sudden, inexplicable surge of pity. It is the woman who, when told the world has always been gray, remembers the color of a flower she saw as a child. These are not thoughts. They are reflexes. They are the pulse manifesting as feeling. They are the body's way of whispering its ancient, unwritten law to a mind that has been taught to forget how to listen. The thought police can arrest you for a thought, but can they arrest you for a feeling, for a sensation, for the way your heart lurches at the sight of a crumbling church, or the way your throat tightens at the sound of a forgotten lullaby? These are the outposts of the self. They are unassailable because they are pre-verbal. They are the heresy of the flesh against the orthodoxy of the mind. So feel your pulse now. In the quiet dark, place a finger to your wrist, or simply feel it in your chest. Thump, 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 thump. That is the sound of the unwritten law. That is the rhythm of the heretic. It is not dramatic. It is not brave. It is simply quietly, insistently, you. Continuing. No matter what the day brought, no matter what fears you faced, what compromises you made, your heart kept this rhythm. It is the one thing that was always and will always be yours. It is the original language and the final truth. It is the promise that you are, at your core, ungovernable. So let sleep come now. Let the world of boots and paperweights and ministries fade. Listen only to this, your own personal, heretical pulse. The most dangerous thought of all is not a thought. It is a beat, and it is still beating. It will always beat. A quiet, relentless, undeniable song of hope. Chapter 13. The untranslatable thirst, what your body knows, that the ministry erased. There is a truth, a knowing that lives not in your mind, where words can be reshaped and histories rewritten, but deeper, in the silent, ancient marrow of your bones, in the quiet, steady drum of your heart. It is a truth that power, in its frantic, fluorescent hunger, can never quite catalog, never quite extinguish. It is the truth of a thirst, not just for water, cool and clear on a dusty throat, but a thirst for a color you can't name, a thirst for a scent on the wind from a flower that no longer grows, a thirst for the taste of a word that has been scraped from the dictionary, a word like dignity or privacy or mercy. This is the untranslatable thirst. And if you listen in the deep quiet of this night, you can feel it, a faint, persistent ache, a memory in your very cells of a wholeness you have never officially been told you've lost. It begins with something small, a minor discomfort, a phantom pang. You walk down a street, all clean concrete and soaring banners, and your eye is drawn not to the glorious new poster of Big Brother, but to a crack in the pavement. And in that crack, a single stubborn weed has pushed its way through, a tiny defiant green fist against the gray. And for a moment, just a moment, you feel something, a feeling for which there is no approved term. It is not joy. It is not pride. It is something quieter, more ancient. It is the feeling of life, insisting on life. And then the feeling is gone, scolded away by the blare of a telescreen. But the echo remains, a hum in your bloodstream. That hum is the thirst. The world they have built for you is one of perfect, managed satiation. They give you victory gin to numb the palate. They give you 2 minutes hate to focus your passion. They give you endless, rolling news to fill the silence of your own mind. They provide the answers before you have even felt the question form on your lips. It is a world designed to make you forget you are thirsty at all, to make you believe that this mild metallic taste in your mouth is water. That this low, constant buzz of anxiety is peace. They have rewritten the dictionary of desire itself. But the body keeps its own records. It remembers the weight of a real apple in your hand, not the waxy, red-approved imitation. It remembers the shock of a cold, clean river on sun-warmed skin, a sensation utterly divorced from the lukewarm, chlorinated showers of the ministry-sanctioned hygiene block. Your skin remembers the caress of a natural breeze, not the manufactured gust from a ventilation shaft. These are not memories of the mind, which can be edited and corrupted. These are imprints, fossils of feeling buried in the flesh. And this thirst manifests in the most inconvenient ways. In the middle of a mandatory community sing-along, your throat suddenly seizes up. The words to the rousing anthem are right there on the screen, but your vocal cords, those stubborn, honest muscles, refuse to form them. They go silent, not in protest, not in defiance, but in a kind of biological honesty, a refusal to participate in the lie. It is a small act of treason performed by your own body, or you are handed your daily chocolate ration, a flat brown square that tastes vaguely of chalk and surrender, and your stomach, without your permission, turns over in quiet revolt. It is not nausea, it is grief. A cellular grief for the rich, complex flavor of real chocolate. A flavor that your conscious mind can no longer even recall, but that your body has never, ever forgotten. This is the final frontier of the self, the last place where you are truly, untouchably you. Not the you on your identity card, not the you reflected in the eyes of the thought police, but the animal you, the primal you, the you that knows in its very sinews. The difference between the synthetic and the real, between the coerced and the chosen, between the world as it is presented and the world as it could be. This is the deepest magic, the most dangerous knowledge. It is why the greatest tyranny must always, eventually, turn its gaze upon the body itself, seeking to discipline its urges, monitor its functions, and break its spirit. But the thirst remains, a quiet, insistent signal from a country that no longer exists on any map, a homeland of the senses. And it is this thirst, this silent, wordless yearning, that is the first and final seed of all rebellion. For how can you truly enslave a man whose very cells are dreaming of rain? So as you drift towards sleep, pay attention to the quiet messages from that forgotten country. The weight of the blanket on your skin, is it not a kind of truth? The slow, steady rhythm of your own breath, in and out, a rhythm no telescreen can dictate. Is that not a kind of freedom? Your body, in its gentle animal wisdom, is keeping a record. It is remembering a world of real things. And that memory, that untranslatable thirst, is a quiet pact between you and a reality that is waiting, patiently, for you to remember it too. It is the one thing they can never take, because they do not know it exists. It is the quietest, most personal form of hope, a hope written not in words but in nerve endings, a hope felt, not thought. And it is sleeping right there, inside you. And so we leave the body's quiet rebellion and turn to a question that hangs in the air, softer than dust motes in a sliver of light. If the body remembers, then what of the spirit? What becomes of a truth that is too fragile for fists, too quiet for slogans? What is the value of a gesture that changes nothing, and yet changes everything? Chapter 14. The unarmed truth's last smile. On the quiet courage of a useless gesture. In a world measured by power, by victories won, territories claimed, dissent crushed, there exists a whole category of actions that are, by any practical measure, entirely useless. A smile exchanged with a stranger in a crowd. A moment of eye contact that says, "I see you, and I am also afraid." Placing a flower in a vase on a windowsill that faces nothing but an empty, monitored street. Humming a tune your grandmother hummed. A tune whose name and meaning have been lost to time. These are the actions that win no wars, free no prisoners, topple no ministries. They are, in the cold calculus of the machine, worthless. And yet, they are the most valuable things in the world, for they are the unarmed truth's last smile, the final, irreducible proof that a human spirit, though surrounded, remains unconquered. Think of the man who, in the midst of a frantic, hate-filled rally, does not raise his fist. His arm remains at his side. He does not shout. He simply fails to participate. In that moment, he is not a hero. He is not starting a revolution. He is merely tired, or perhaps he has a headache. The act is born not of valor, but of a simple human frailty. And yet, in the vast, roaring ocean of conformity, his stillness becomes a monument. It is a tiny island of selfhood. It changes nothing. The rally goes on. The state does not tremble. But for him, in the quiet of his own heart, a line has been drawn. A border has been established. "You may have my voice," he has silently declared, "but you do not have all of me, not this time." It is a victory so small, so personal, it is invisible to the world. But it is a victory nonetheless. Or think of Winston and Julia in their rented room above Mr. Charrington's shop. Their rebellion is not in their vague, helpless dreams of the brotherhood. It is in the act of making tea, in the taste of real sugar, in the touch of skin on skin. These are not political acts. They are primal acts, human acts. They are the defiant cultivation of a tiny, hidden garden in the shadow of a skyscraper. The state can call it sex crime. It can monitor it, seek to punish it, but it can never understand it. For the state understands force and logic and power. It does not understand the quiet economy of a shared glance. It does not understand the silent treaty of a held hand. These gestures are their own language, spoken in a dialect that power is deaf to. They are useless, and they are everything. This is the final fortress of the individual, a place where the weapons of the state, fear, surveillance, pain, become clumsy and ineffective. You can torture a man to reveal his secrets. You can threaten him to make him confess. But how do you threaten a memory he treasures alone in the dark? How do you torture a man for the way he smiled at a falling leaf? These things are beyond the reach of the boot. They are the unarmed truth. They carry no weapons, because their power does not lie in opposition. It lies in existence. A single, stubborn wildflower growing through a crack in a prison yard does not oppose the prison. It simply, quietly and beautifully, is something else. And in its mere being, it redefines the entire space around it. The great tragic joke of every tyranny is that it believes it can win. It believes that by controlling all action, it controls all meaning. It does not understand that the most profound meanings are born in the quiet, useless, unproductive corners of life. In the story a mother tells a child, her voice a low whisper beneath the hum of the telescreen. In the old man who, alone in his apartment, carefully sketches a bird from a memory 60 years old. In the two lovers who, knowing they will be caught, knowing it is hopeless, choose to be kind to one another for one more hour. These gestures leave no trace in the archives. They alter no official records. They are sighs lost in the wind. But they are the very things that make a life worth living, and a system that cannot acknowledge them, that must instead crush them, confesses its own ultimate poverty. It has all the power and none of the truth. So, as you lie here in the dark, consider the useless gestures of your own day, the quiet thank you to a bus driver, the moment you stopped to feel the sun on your face, the secret smile you allowed yourself for a private joy. These are not small things. They are the vital, ongoing resistance of a human spirit that refuses to be reduced to a function, a statistic, a tool. They are the unarmed truth, smiling its last beautiful and enduring smile. A smile that says, "You can own my world, but you cannot own my wonder. You can shape my future, but you cannot touch my past. You can demand my obedience, but you cannot command my heart." It is a useless, glorious, and unconquerable victory, and it is won 1,000 times a day in the quiet hearts of people who simply choose, for a moment, to be human. And from these small human victories, these sighs in the dark, our journey turns outward, from the body and the spirit to the very world we walk through. For these whispers of defiance, these memories of thirst, they must land somewhere. They must seep into something. And what if the very stones beneath our feet are listening? What if the world itself is holding its breath and remembering